Let's wait for 1-2 minutes longer to see if we get some more viewers on today's streaming. Then I would start with a short essay I did prepare and with a follow-up discussion with you about the subject I'm talking about. Please feel free to add your comments, questions and so on in the chat window, and I will go through them after the short essay I did prepare for you. Buonasera. Okay, I think I get started. So hello and welcome for today's discussion about free energy. If someone is asking you if free energy exists, then you might get two answers. First, yes, and second, no. Well, which one is now correct? Before we answer that, we must look first at the human nature. I look to focus here at two groups. One, the layman, the inexperienced, gut-feeling person, not based on science facts. And of course, the person who is educated scientifically, universities or whatever. He would say no. To understand my answer, we must look at the nature of humans. We must try to fathom things we do not understand and associate attributes to it. Very curious people in the past took their time to understand what they see. They developed formulas and measuring instruments and did call it the truth. However, very often this truth did not add up mathematically, so they developed constants to make the calculation work. The culprit here is the ego. In each one of us, which does trap us in our body and is telling us what to believe, what is right and what is wrong. We emotionally attach ourselves to our beliefs and hide behind the so-called truth without making any progress. Without extending it to our current situation as society, so I move forward to provide some examples to make it clear what I mean. Example 1. The free energy activist would say a magnet put on a refrigerator need to create free energy in order to stick on a refrigerator because it defies the gravitational force to pull it down to the ground of the surface of the earth. The scientist will say it does not create free energy because it does not perform work. Work is identified as a movement of mass or potential from A to B. In the physical world, we define a horsepower as 550 pounds moved up 1 feet in 1 second. In order to understand the concept of free energy, we must step outside of the framework we are in. Visualize a fish in a pond which is floating through the water, which does not understand the things it can see outside the pond when looking through the surface of the water. It would say, how is it possible? There cannot be anything outside of this water, the reality in which I live. We humans try to make sense of what we see without being able to see the obvious. The only way to understand our reality, you must be outside of it. Very important. Our ego makes it even more difficult for us to understand, and our emotions keep us in check not to step outside of these boundaries. Now, this was a little bit about our deficiency to understand what is going on. But if we be honest about what we already think to know, so what we can measure, we already have our answer. Yes and no. That brings me to Schrödinger's cat, where the paradox exists of two opposite states at the same time. Only the observer makes the reality to become true. You must decide. Of course, you watch, but you also decide subconsciously. This has been proven experimentally by focusing in group meditation and therefore changing the outcome of an experiment. And the effect is not localized and time dependent. It is outside of our framework, or you might call it reality to take place. This demonstrates our connection to each other and the material world on a different level of dimension. Coming back to free energy, does it exist? It is all around us and we are part of it. This framework would not exist if it would not have been created or what we think is real, because our brain is interpreting all of it. To make it simple, the so-called 0-point energy is not a source of energy to tap into it, because it's a condition of the framework we are in. However, the effects are creating in forces which we can measure. This is again as compared to the example of the magnet. It is the interaction between the outside and the inside of our framework. It is not the leftover of a so-called Big Bang, which on its own would be free energy, because everything we see was supposed to come into existence out of a singularity or stillness. Well, energy, matter out of nothing. This only thing required is a thought to make it happen. Here is your free energy. It exists in all of us and the matter in nature around us. The second law of thermodynamics does not apply to nature. We have all the power to create free energy by applying nature's power in creation. Now, I think you might have a question, but ask first yourself this. Is it really free energy I'm looking for, or something more profound? So that was a little essay to think about it, and I'm happy to go through the subject with you, maybe in a little bit more depth, but looking at it at the framework we are in, everything can be just be an illusion. Everything which is interpreted, what you see, what you feel, what you do, the interaction with others is interpreted by your brain and can also be not real. We don't know. So the only thing we measure are something which we don't even know either if that's real or not. Nobody knows what electricity is, and so on. Well, let me look at some of your questions you might have. If we look at technical terms about any kind of development and so on, it's a way to try to find, it's a way to create with your hands and with your ideas. But what you have to think about it, it is not your hands and your ideas is creating. Yes, the world around us is created by us, created by nature, but also by us. So we are putting our, not only our thought, we're putting our, let's call it physical ambition into producing something. But we have to follow here the so-called rules. If they exist, the rules are based on the nature's rule. Everything takes time, even if time does not exist in the way we are thinking about time, but progression goes over a period. And progression in nature and progression in producing something from us has to start from A to B. Instantaneously, things do not happen, even if it would be possible like that, but currently that's the base we are in. So it takes us time to build a house, to build a car, to build anything we are doing. So if we have a machine we are built, and we are asking the machine, well, it took me a month now to build you a little machine, and I put some energy in it, and I want you to give me the same more energy out of what you have from what I produce into it. So this machine would have to think, well, I like to give you whatever you want. However, in this environment I am, sorry, I can't give you any more I have. You have to give it me from somewhere, right? Well, the idea was, oh, we're tapping into a different kind of field. We're tapping outside of this field. Well, the idea might not be incorrect. Well, this thought was always assumed that we take the energy from somewhere else. However, we are in this framework. That means we take the energy only from surrounding us. And the 0 point energy is not energy. It's a fluctuation. And Dirac said, we are living in a sea of energy, but he was incorrect. What he said or what he measured and what he defined was only the result of what can be measured. Virtual energy coming into existence and disappearing. That the net result is always zero. Yes, there's a fluctuation, there's a movement in and out and so on. The 0 point energy. The Casimir effect did provide the proof. Yes, we can move two plates very, very close together. Under this condition, will be pressed together from the outside pressure. Well, it's a physical phenomenon. Obviously, there is something there. Yes, there is something there. However, it is created not by something special or something left over. It's created because of the environment and the environment we are living in. The framework we are in, the framework which keeps matter, everything existing, is the reason everything is behaving that way. It's like you put something under pressure. If you take a brick and you take your hands and put it together. So the brick will not move because it's between your hands. So these two hands, imagine them being big as a universe. Everything is put under pressure and everything is reacting. It's action and reaction. Force and anti-force. Trying to move against it. Because of that, friction is happening. Friction normally, in physical terms, is creating heat. This heat we measure. The 0 point energy is 3 Kelvin above the absolute 0 point. It is heat. And because the scientists thought, well, if we take that back, we can say we had a big bang at some point, and the universe did cool down, and now we are at 3 degrees, and 3 degrees, it's everywhere. Well, they actually found out it's not everywhere 3 degrees. And they also found out actually the universe is moving apart, but actually it's not moving equally apart. We have difference then. Oh, our constant we have is not right. We have to find something else. How is that possible? Well, as I explained, we try to make sense of things we see. We try to create formulas, calculation, mathematical construct which fits in that what we see. Without actually knowing it's correct, yes, Einstein's theory said relativity is correct, and in most cases it works, but the other cases it doesn't work. So we have constants here again, constant of speed of light, but in matter and in different materials, the speed of light is not the speed of light, it's much lower. So, but the other conditions, it can actually exceed the speed of light, which is not based on the standard principle. So the constant can be broken. We have many constants in very, very many applications we are using. They can be broken. And they lead always to errors and to problems. But understand this. We are humans. That means we make errors. We have to accept that we make errors. But we should learn also to stand up and say, I'm sorry, I made an error. However, and that's what I said, human nature is forbidding you to do that. Not telling you to do that, but your own ego is telling you, well, I don't want to admit I made an error, so I keep it to myself and try to deceive everybody. And that is the problem we currently have in our society with everything. And you can start with politics, you can start with the education system. The whole society is built on this principle, and that doesn't end with you in between your family and your neighbor. It doesn't end there. It's all around us, and that's what we are. So the question then comes, does free energy exist? Of course it exists. However, not the way you think it exists. And you look at the wrong place when you look at free energy. That's where you're looking. You will not find anything. And people telling you, well, I find it. It is here. Well, they're deceiving you because their ego is working against them. And they're not honestly about it. They put something out there, that's the truth, and then they disappear. And that again puts all the subject on a negative base, because then other people think, oh, they're all liars. I can't believe them. It's human nature, people. It's human nature. That's the way it is. You might attribute to it, say, it's bad. I would not say it's bad. It's human nature. It is bad and good, but justification of what is bad and good is also something which the ego does. Judgment. Judgment is not okay. We should not judge. And because we do all these kind of things, we create a lot of frictions with all the people all around us. And free energy is only one aspect. So you can go through all the areas of disciplines in a society, in a workplace. It doesn't end there. Now let me go through some of your questions. Conrad Simmons, resonance is the key to everything. The question. Resonance is not the key to everything. Resonance is the behavior of matter to a frequency on its own. It's a vibration of matter on its own when it comes into existence. Every matter vibrates. Every matter is sending a signal out, and because it sends a signal out, because of the pressure of our environment, call it the black energy, the dark energy, call it ether. This is the one which is causing the vibration. It is a friction because of the pressure to keep the atoms in place and the electrons in place where they are. Technically, they would fall apart. Here you have your free energy wise. A piece of matter exists almost indefinitely, right? And because of the environment, it stays that way. It's the same example of a magnet. A magnet put on a fridge. Does it work or not? Yes, of course it works, but it works because of a different functionality, which is bound of the matter in a specific constellation, which has a fluctuation in this field, which gives it the properties of attract or adapt or connect to other metals as well, because it wants to add more and more of this material to itself, then more of the magnetic flux can be added together. But resonance is not the key. Resonance is the signature of material. You can identify everything, every matter in a world based on the signature. We do that actually in a light band with chromatic photography. So we take the light out in the stars, we split them down in different colors, and each specific matter, molecule, atom has a specific color. That's your resonance. It resonates at this frequency, it absorbs all the other colors and only emits this one color, and that's why we know, or we think we know, that's the reason we see that different chemicals or different elements or atoms are available on distant stars. We haven't been there, but we see the light reflecting. So we assume, because we tested that, we take natrium, we take calcium, we take hydrogen, we take oxygen, we take iron, and they have a different band in the light frequency. And because of that, we can measure on distant stars the content it has, or how much content it has, and what elements are existing. Let's go to some other questions. There are a lot of questions here. Let's go through here. Let's start from the beginning. Oh, here it says Matas Che. Why did Nikola Tesla believe in ether despite the Michael Morrison experiment? And why did he insist EM waves are longitudinal and not transversal? First of all, the Michelson-Morley experiment was conducted completely wrong. I explained, there is a video actually I did produce out there, it's on Vimeo, about ether and go in detail about the subject, so I will not repeat that. There is actually proof that the ether field is existing. And look at one of my very early movies where I have a radiometer, where I did prove that a field is existing, which is liquid, which is flowing actually forward and backward when you energize it. I did that with high voltage direct current through fluorescent bulbs. And because of that, I pushed first an energy tube with high voltage, stopped it, and then you see the flow back. Watch this video. This is about 8-9 years ago. So from a coil, and I produced this video as well. Watch it up. I did make an experiment to demonstrate that the velocity of light or the electromagnetic field is in the longitudinal definition of a coil much faster than in a transversal. It's actually quite clear. So we have the dielectrical field between each winding, and we have the electrical field, the magnetic field going along the winding. So when you have, let's say, 100 meter, it takes a long time for the wire to walk up to the top of the coil, but between the individual windings, it's much faster to move. This becomes more pronounced the wider the coil is and the shorter it becomes. So you still have a long way for the wire for the electrical field to move around, but between the first winding and the top winding is only a small part, and because of that, the frequency is increasing dramatically. You have a much higher frequency that the calculated frequency would normally suggest it would be. And I measured that and I demonstrate that. That's a fact. Yes. Okay, I don't want to go too much into the spiritual realm. However, I touched on that subject. Of course, we are breathing energy in, we are breathing energy out. So if we go to Walter Russell, this breathing in and breathing out is a cycle of life and death. It's a sine wave going up and down, positive, where the culprit, let's say the pivotal point, is a zero line. The zero line is where everything starts to exist out of the singularity. It's a zero line where the wave goes through, becomes from positive, goes to negative, and goes up, back to zero, and goes up. This is your wave. This wave exists because in this reality we are. Life exists in duality. So we have this kind of movement, but we need the stillness as well. We need the pivotal point. The point without nothing would exist. We need the stillness. And because of that, from the stillness out, everything exists. So if they would say there was a singularity at the beginning of time, and then there was a Big Bang, well, it kind of fits into the pattern. But I personally, if I ask my heart, I personally would say, and I personally feel that is right, there was never ever a Big Bang. As long as a thought exists, and this thought was always existing, everything existed. A thought put everything into existence. However, this thought, like your spirit, is not the physical body. It's outside of our body. And outside of our body, we are connected to each other. We are outside of this reality we are calling reality, and at that level, we are all connected, and we are in a singularity. That time does not exist there, decay does not exist, progress does not exist, everything is there. Only thought and consciousness exists at that level. Without judgment, without emotional attachment, without anything. And at that level, you can do everything. A small part of it comes into reality. A small part of it is actually creating everything all around us. So we are part of this reality. So we are forming the reality. Yes, we put our hands in, but we are also forming reality with our thoughts. Our thoughts are very, very powerful. With your thought, you can influence everything. Even if you don't think you do it deliberately, but with your thought, you influence your environment and the reflection of your environment to yourself. That means if you have negative thoughts and you bring out negative thoughts into your environment, negative thoughts will come back to you, the feedback. If you are happy, if you are positive, see this one little example I want to give you to wrap it up only one shortly. Go in an elevator. Look at all the people in this elevator in a company. Start to smile. sending out positive vibes, what do you think is going to happen? People might look away, but many people will start to smile back at you. This is the power of the feedback of your intention. With your intention, you can move mountains. You can do everything. And you can do with negative intentions the opposite. Yeah. If you look at all the disease, all the problems we have, these problems we are all having are man-made. We did that to ourselves. And we have to get ourselves out of it as well. We can do that only by changing our behavior. It goes a little bit, drifts a little bit up, away from our subject, but the main context is the same thing. If you want to create, you need nature to work with you. That's all I want to say. You cannot work against nature, you can only work together with nature. And you will be rewarded. Nature will bring back all the things you want. We are not at that level that I say we are so far up in our development that we can create matter just by thinking about it. There are people actually at that conscious levels who are able to do that. However, this is a different subject. They are not part of the normal world we are currently in. It goes into secret societies and so on. But we have the possibility up at a specific level to create matter. There's one good example. I mean, you see so many movies and so many things who's touching on several aspects of that. It is our intention by creating such kind of movies to visualize our future, to visualize the situation we are in. And it doesn't really matter what movie you watch, what science fiction you watch. We are actually working with our emotions, with our thoughts, with our ambition, with these movies, and driving into a direction we see. It can be any kind of subject. If we look from a technological point of view, then we can go on the dark side. If we go to Matrix, then you would understand they really captured it very well to understand that in a framework you're existing, you cannot make any changes. You have to step outside of this framework and outside behind the curtain of the stage. You can pull the strings and can make the puppets work in front of you. If you're on stage, you are the puppet. And that's what we are. We are currently only puppets. Only if we push ourselves away from the stage we are in, then we can pull the strings and make things happen. Let me go to some other questions. From David. Yes, well, it's this. Let's call about doctrine. Doctrine in the scientific community are so-called no-nos. A no-no is something because you worked so hard in being educated. You spent a decade in a university. You did your research. You got funding. You work for a very well-known and great company. And you call yourself a scientist, you have a doctor title and so on. There is a doctrine which forbids you to walk out of the framework. You are captured by the society. The society is pushing you literally, telling you, you got all this rewards, you got all this accolades and this badges you have, and you can call yourself a doctor and you are an educated and scientific person and you know better than anybody else in the world. So what you are actually is that you spend a lot of time reading things what other people wrote about being true. You study the time about the so-called truth to work on it until you believe yourself it's true. Once you believe something is true, you will not give it up anymore. That is a kind of resistance, kind of inertia of the ego. Letting go. You cannot let go. Even if you want to, you are not able to let go. You want it to be true and you defend it viciously that is true. And everybody who is against it and say, oh, that's all rubbish, cannot be true. You would say, what do you know? I'm studied, I'm a doctor, I'm a scientist, I have 20 years, 30 years of experience. What do you know? Well, for my heart I can say it cannot be true. Oh, you're an ignorant, you have no education, I do not believe you. Yeah, prove it to me. And then you are in a pickle, because that's how the world works. You have to prove things. You cannot just say, it's in my heart's telling me that's right, or my heart is telling me that's wrong. If you're a spiritual person, you would listen more to your heart, to what other people or what other people write and think or tell you what is true. Your heart will tell you what's right and what's wrong. But the problem is we are not listening to it. We are listening to this, we are on a society level, we are talking about the things we are doing, people are talking to each other, we are suppressed in our way to be able to express ourselves. We are not listening to our so-called inner voice. Our inner voice is telling us what's right and wrong. However, if you look at the society around us, this society will not live with free thinkers, right? What is a free thinker? A free thinker is a person who is not trying to be bound by the doctrine of society. However, that doesn't mean that you can disregard nature. Nature around you is a teacher. But what does nature teach you? Nature can teach you only the way nature can work. But you have to be very careful here. That is also not the truth, because nature is also a prisoner of this construct we are living in. You can change nature. You can change nature by forming it not only with your intention, that comes then the so-called tree huggers and stuff like that, but not only with your intention, but also with technology, as I said. We can change, improve, or manipulate nature as well. Like the astrophysiker or like the plasma physiker, the people who create fusion and fission, they would say, I can do with a lot of smashing of atoms, like in CERN, I can create different materials and matters and can analyze what's going on. They need huge machines for that to produce it. Cost billions of dollars for many countries actually to sponsor that, only to find out what are the different kind of matter in there, and there should be something else, without actually understanding the real nature of the things we are. The construct we're in is very, very complex. But it's kind of everything falls into place. We're thinking about, well, it has to be constructed so precisely. There must be intelligence behind it. Well, there is intelligence behind it, but not to that level that the intelligence has to control every tiny little bit. If you take just an example. If you have a bowl of water, you put water in the bowl. Do you need to think about how this water behaves in this bowl? Do you need to think about how the molecules arrange around itself in this bowl? No. You just give a bowl and you put water in, and then you forget about it. You're not making it up, or you're not making ideas how the molecules in the water has to change. No, it's not your job. You don't need that. You just take a bowl and you put water in, and that's it. So our own universe is just a big ball, yeah, where some kind of energy has been put in, and because of, and that is again, it's my understanding, my feeling, why do we have, if we have everything in duality, if we had anti-atoms or antimatter and matter, they should analyze it into zero, there should be nothing left. However, we have something left, so something is wrong. Why do we have matter left and we don't see any antimatter? Because antimatter and matter has been neutralized each other to that extent where the amount of antimatter is less than the matter. So my gut feeling, and that is actually proof, what is the second point, what is the second argument in nature or rule in nature which describes that, which says it should not be in equal portions, it should be in unequal portion. This is pi. It is the law of asymmetric energy delivery, and because of asymmetric delivery, you have of course not 50-50, you have 35-65. And because of that, we have more matter and less antimatter or no antimatter, because the matter left after both did combine, there is matter left. And that's my understanding, my feelings that is correct, because we have this kind of universal law here. So we have duality for duplicating things or for creating everything, and we're using the same technology actually for our computers, the dual system, binary system. Then we have the asymmetrical performance. Every body, every plant, every living thing is working asymmetrically. And then we have the third component. It's a Fibonacci sequence. All these three components is making up the nature's law, and that's what we can work with. That's all there is. And that everything can be constructed with these three very simple laws. And you need a big bucket to put everything in there. Let it work out. Like a chemist, you put everything in, let it react, but you give the framework. You have a big ball, put it all in, let it work it out, apply the nature's rule, and that's what the end is. Well, at first the tank was full, and now at the end there's only a little bit left, and that's our visible matter we see in the universe. That's the leftover what we have after the big reaction ended. And we are part of it. We are part of the leftover, together with the rest of nature. But the ball is still there, and the field around the ball, which keeps us all in check, is still there, right? But it doesn't need to be controlled. It's there, and because of the conditions we are in, it has to form into a specific form. It falls into place, and that is a calculation, that is the information we are reading from this matter. How is it possible that they have to be so precisely together that they don't fall apart? They are because of the framework. The framework is dictating this one without telling it. It doesn't tell. It is the way it is, and we shouldn't need to think about it. It's great. We need to calculate it. We can calculate it to the 10th position after the dot decimal point. Yes, and it's a miracle. But because the framework did dictate it, it has to be that way. Otherwise, it would fall apart. But nobody is there to put it that way. Nobody said it has to be exactly that, otherwise it will not exist. It came by its own into the existence by having this kind of ratio, and because of that it does exist, and that's the matter as leftover left in our universe. Let me go with some questions. I think it takes quite a long time. Let's have a look here. I'm looking through some of your questions, see if I have something else we can do. So I created that is from Robin. So I created a video and tried to explain that actually the first one who did create calculation and was very, very precisely in calculating that was Steinmetz. So Steinmetz did actually prove that the dielectric component of a field is always existing. However, in a low voltage range, the dielectric component is fairly small. However, we can measure this dielectric component, and actually everybody knows it's existing, even at low voltage. Everybody has a phone, everybody has a touch screen. Touch screen works with the dielectric electricity, dielectric energy of your fingers, and because of that, on the screen, you can measure things. So the dielectric field is existing in any electromagnetic radiation, however, to a lower extent. The dielectric field is the energy which is created between the windings. It is not created along the windings. It is between the windings, and this dielectric field is a longitudinal component of the movement of the wave through the winding. And this one is actually quite strong. However, it becomes only visible or very strong with high voltage. Then it starts to really explode out of the coil and is reaching a far larger or greater area. And this dielectric field is actually very destructive. It can destroy every kind of electronics, everything around us. And I did prove that in another video. I did it 1 year ago when we were in a different place. I did prove to you when I extend the dielectric field, and I had a lamp on a table, and the lamp had a so-called dielectric touch, or let's say a capacitor touch, or a touch button. When I touch the button, the lamp goes on. When the dielectric field is extended, that's the whole area around me becomes electrically charged in a dielectric field, that I move with my body, the whole field. That it's that instead of a little finger I press on it, all of a sudden my finger becomes so big. And when I move my fingers then through the room, to the space, everything I touch in this space with my hand is then moving and changing. And I did prove that by moving my hand forward and backward, and I switched the lamp on and off because I extended the dielectric field. Under normal circumstances, this dielectric field is very, very small. So small that you need to touch your screen in order to make it work. If the dielectric field is great, is strong, it is very destructive, and you have no control about anything at all anymore. All your electronics will not work anymore because you disrupt the energy flow in the circuitry with the dielectric field, because it blocks. It's like a magnet you put on a coil. The magnet is the electromagnetic equivalent to the dielectric field. So a magnet will stop the flow of energy in a coil. If you put a magnet in a different direction, you can stop the flow of energy. The dielectric field is the electrical field. It's not the magnetic field. So we have the two fields, electromagnetic and dielectric, but both are always together to different ratios depending on the voltage you apply. That's all there is. I go to some of more of the questions, see if so let's not, very important, my discussion here is not if I don't judge. I want to make that quite clear. And in the last 10 years in my videos, I never ever feedback, any negative feedback. I did a lot of experimentation from people who did do experimentation, and that is something I see, that is something is real. I did experimentation as well. Well, I don't see it that way. It doesn't work that way. They have their opinion. It's fine. Opinion is the ego again. I want to try to distance myself from that. Having said that is, I don't judge. Very important. I don't want to judge you or anybody in, first of all, in your belief, and second of all, in what you think is right or wrong. So if I see a device A, B, and C, is that working or not? I would say it's up to you. You make it believe, you make it work. If you believe it's working, right? You don't need to prove to me that something is working. So I'm not the one who want to prove to you something is working or not. I don't want to disregard any kind of inventions that are out there. Efficiency, cold energy, cold electricity, everything is existing. That is fair enough. I am the observer here. I try to do the best I can to be as neutral as positive to look at things. I will not go into personal engagement. I will also not say this person or that person is wrong. They shouldn't do it that way. This is judgment and it's not okay. They have all their own beliefs. They have all their own things they're working on, and that is good so. They should do that. I don't want to change the world with whatever I'm thinking is right or wrong, right? I let them for others to do that. But what I'm saying is, because we are behaving that way, we don't help ourselves. We really don't. It's not making the world a better place, and it's not helping us. The only way we can work together is finding a work, well, making things work in a way it makes sense, and not into looking into technologies to find a way. We are inside this framework. We cannot make things work. Doesn't matter what it is. Step out of it. Listen to what you see around you, right? see what's happening, apply changes, make it work. That's the only thing I can do. In the last 20 years, in all experimentation, and I need to tell you that now, just to make it clear, and hopefully many people will see that. In all these years, in all the experimentation I did, I was always sure in my heart, what I'm seeing is only a small portion of the reality, yes, but on the other side, I never ever found any real proof that what I'm doing is something taken out of an area which is not our own framework. Meaning, I have to take it out from here of the pocket and have to put it on the other side. I cannot steal it from nothingness. I have to take it out from somewhere and have to put it here. I can do that very efficiently, and don't get me wrong, I can do that super efficiently. So I need to take only a little bit out and get a lot of out over here, but this over here will not be more. It will be only to an extent more than it was before. That's all there is. And that's all I can say. All these technologies, let's hear an example, Hendershot or any others, any other Tesla coils and stuff which are working. So I try to explain all the coil system. So if you really, that becomes a little bit difficult. If you really look into the functionality of how coils work, and I explained that the industrial community, you will never find a transformer which is working in resonance. And I've actually done some lately some experimentation for my project where I did prove it to myself again. You have a transformer, it has a core. Yes, you can resonate this core into a resonant frequency, like Q, the Hope Girl, did with this Q machine, QEG, or what's it called again. And they work with resonance. Not only did it destroy the transformer, but there was not more energy getting out. And actually at resonance it's worse. So the core, the function of a core between a primary and a secondary is nothing else but to transmit energy from A to B in a ratio. It can do the job only based on the material quality, that means of the functionality of this material. Forget about going above 1000 Hertz. Ferrite materials can go to 15, 20,000, and then exotic materials can go over 50 or 100,000 Hertz. But the higher you go in the frequency, the less of the magnetic field is transmitted over from the primary to the secondary. You have losses. The losses are always in the core material. The core material is actually sucking up all the energy you have, and it's not letting it go so easily. So you don't have 100% conversion rate. Even if I put 1 watt in the primary, you don't get 1 watt out on a secondary. You have losses, and the losses are the heat in the core material. Yes, if you have a core material which is very, very loose coupled, let's say an air core, then we have a Tesla coil, then our core material is air. And air has no problems. But the problem of air or vacuum is that it has no coupling. The K factor is it's 0, or here in this example it is 1. It's almost nothing. And the only way you can transmit energy between a coil primary and secondary is via resonance. However, at that level, you transmit electromagnetic energy and you have only dielectric energy to a certain extent. That means you have technically no energy you transmit. In the traditional sense as a transformer, what you transmit is pure electromagnetic energy, as a Tesla coil is a pure antenna. And as such, it has a complete different functionality. And it cannot transmit energy, only to a small amount. Only the amount which is valid or which is possible to transmit between the two coils, only in resonance, yes. But at this resonance frequency, the only thing I'm doing, I'm stepping up the voltage. But my current is not going equivalent higher. However, electromagnetic field is strong, as I did in my latest video that shows it, but my voltage is down in the cellar. It's gone, right? So I have no voltage, so it's not helping me. The electric magnetic energy, I cannot combine voltage from somewhere else with electromagnetic energy from somewhere else and put it together. If I could do that, we wouldn't have any discussion about free energy. Then we have it right away, right? But that doesn't work. They are connected. They are a unit. You cannot take them apart. If you take them apart, you cannot rebuild them together. It's not like matter. If you take matter apart, put it back together. It doesn't work like that. If I split an atom, I cannot put the atom back together. Or if I can put the atom back together, as an example, to create gold out of plumbum, it requires a tremendous amount of energy to create gold from lead, right? However, it's possible. However, to split it into lead, it's much easier via decay or via radiation. It costs less energy. So the entropy, or let's say chaos, is much easier to produce that order. But nature does that. Life does create order. Life is organizing. Why is life the only direct proof that free energy exists? Because life is organizing matter. Well, there was a physician a couple of years ago in England or Ireland, I believe, and he said, matter tries to organize itself to get rid of the heat. That means matter is thinking. So his ambition, or let's say his idea was, the reason why nature exists the way it exists is because matter wants to find a way to get rid of the heat. And getting rid of the heat is to cool down, and you cool down when you create order. Order is a cooling process. Heat is an expansion process. It's the opposite. So heat is destructive. Cooling down is constructive, right? Heat and cold. Normally it's always in balance, but what matter does, it is cooling down, getting things together, and that's how our atmosphere works as well with water. Water needs heat to vaporize, but by vaporizing, it cools down, it consolidates, it creates. And with plants, exactly the same thing. With humans, exactly with everything living, it's the same thing. Let's say, the seed of life has the information to take from matter in a chaotic form all the boundary required to create something much bigger. So technically, it's like someone goes in a very dirty room and goes around and cleans everything. At the end of the day, you spend a whole day in a room cleaning up everything. You as a seed, you're cleaning up everything, right? And the room is clean, but the room, after a while, it gets dirty again, so you have to clean again. And that's the recycle of death, life, and birth, and getting reborn. It's a cycle. It always has to start again. You have to start over and over again to make it work. But only nature can do that, right? So if we're looking for a system which we say, well, it should create me some energy and should use all the energy available to us, and we're thinking about, yes, we are living in this construct. We are living in this universe. Then I have to live with what I have. And the only thing I have is life. So life can produce things. I know that. Everybody knows that. Every farmer knows that. We all know that, because we wouldn't be alive if we wouldn't have food to eat. The farmers know that they produce the food for us. It's their job. Without it, we wouldn't be alive. So now, if I have the same principle for a machine, then the machine needs to be alive. That's your answer. You need a machine which is alive, which is self-organizing, and so on. And then you have a system where this machine can harness all the energies and matter all around it to create something. But bear in mind, it is not the machine, it is the thought and the life of this machine which is creating then the energy for you. And we are using this energy today because all the trees did grow, did die, and they say, well, it create our oil, and all the water and everything that is there, its movement. We are using this energy of nature, which took a long time to capture from the nature, and for us only to release in a short period of time. Still, in this process, we are still limited of the ways we have around us to make things work, but nature does it for us. So then the question would be, well, I can't wait for 1,000 years or so on for nature to grow so hard. It needs to go faster. Well, then we have to develop something. We have to work on something to make it better. Well, I want to have something which, let's say, machine which can harness something not in 1 year, but in, let's say, in 1 month. That's now a technical challenge you bring into the subject to build a machine, a live machine, which does the job for you, right? So from going into purely technical way of getting into the subject of getting energy out of it, let's turn it around. Let's take a nature step, building nature machines to do the job for you. Because that's the way we know it works. So we should actually focusing on that, but nobody does it. Why not? Why not? Why is nobody focusing on that? Why does want everybody to try something outside of what is actually normal? Every technology we have, everything we have built is done by us. It is not done in harmony with the nature. Because not done with harmony in nature, we are going with everything we did develop against the nature. And if we go against the nature, we are getting pushed back. And the pushback is our restriction. The pushback is the way that we see that we can't get more energy out of a system that there is, because we are in this framework. Yes, we talk about, and one of my big subjects when I did my high school degree was energy balance. Yes, we have an open system and we have a closed system. I know that a bottle is a closed system. When I have a bottle closed and I have gas inside and I shake it, well, I have gas mixed, I have a soda inside. It creates so much pressure because of the carbon dioxide that it might explode. So that's a closed system. It is very simple to look at this way. But if you look at an open system, well, we call it the open system because we don't feel the boundaries, but technically it's not an open system either. However, the bottle becomes all of a sudden so big as a whole universe. So if I move a little bit of matter here, around here, the whole universe will hardly notice it. It might notice it. It might see that someone is moving somewhere because the universe is also nature, is part of life. It might be consciousness. It might be conscious as well. It can think. But because it's larger now, we're talking about an open system. But technically it's not open. It's also limited, what we think is limited, to the matter which exists. But nobody was actually thinking about, well, what if the process which created matter is a process which is ongoing, which means matter is created all the time by thought, by something, by the nature, by the construct itself, that the construct and the pressure inside this construct, what we call ether, is actually in the possibility to create matter. Creating matter is creating energy. Yes, we know that energy and matter is equal, right? Einstein's famous formula, yeah? He says, well, energy is equal to the matter times the speed of light. What happens if matter is created on its own? Then this formula is out of the question. This formula all of a sudden has no bearing anymore, only bearing to the matter I have in my hand, right? I can say and I can calculate, because a calculation and mathematical formula exists to tell me how much energy I have in my hand full of matter, right? But all of a sudden this matter exists out of nowhere here in front of my table. If I have such people around me who can generate or can produce matter, it would be that way, out of different dimensions, whatever you can call it. You can think about of something, but it actually exists. Then this matter would then be in front of me, and it came out from nothing, right? Then you would say, well, that's exactly what I need. That is the machine I need. I need a machine which produces me something which is not here, right? It has to be outside of here. It needs to be outside of the area we are living in. And then I have something. What kind of machine would that be? I don't know. But my best guess is, that's what I said before, is nature. You have to build a living machine A machine which is alive, which is producing for you this kind of energy. And not technology. Technology is our own invention to help us along. So how much did it help us? Well, it helped us a bit, but it also made us prisoner of our own technology. It made us prisoner because we have to live with this technology. I have to live with this electricity. Without electricity, I wouldn't be able to talk to you. We have networks. We have all this kind of technologies existing. They make us dependent on it. Without it, we cannot communicate. We like to talk to each other, especially in these times like we are currently in. We have no social context. We need to talk to each other. We need that. And we need this technology. We need electricity, whatever it is. We need to have that to talk to each other, right? To connect us. In the old days, there was no internet existing. There was no electricity existing. 250 years, 300 years ago, there was no electricity. People talked to each other. Well, there were less people on the world. But if you go back to very, very basic, to the region of humanity, they had ways to talk to each other. They had ways to communicate to each other because they were based on a nature's law. They could talk to each other. They could feel each other. But because we are so depending on this technology, all our, let's say, our ability to do the same thing is degraded to such an extent that we don't notice them anymore. And they only come out to a small part of it, only very slightly, when we are in a situation, when we are under distress, when we are under certain circumstances. Then all of a sudden, this energy comes back, or this feeling, or this ability comes back to help us. As kind of a guardian angel, if you want. However, if we would have trained in this environment, let's say in an environment which is without these technologies, we would get our feeling back to nature. We would listen to the wind, listen to the movement of the leaves on the tree. We would feel the things. We would hear the things they're talking to us and telling us. And all of a sudden we would be connected to nature, and then we would have different ideas about how to go around. Yes, that is very, very difficult with the amount of people around us, so we have technically not, we have put ourselves in this prison, and there's no point actually to point at other people. They're the wrong ones and I'm the good one. We're all in the same boat, right? We all are on an ocean in the same boat, and we have to move all in the same direction, and we cannot get off the boat. Except we jump over the board, might risking killing ourselves, right? But that is the situation we're in. We are dependent on all these technologies, and because we are having this technology, we are thinking in technological terms. And that is our mistake we make. Thinking technologically doesn't solve our problems. It never has. It gives us comfort. It entertains us. It helps us to communicate. It helps us to move. That's all it does. But it doesn't get us where we really want to be. Right? That's be healthy. That's being connected to nature and creating maybe a machine which can generate energy. Right? It doesn't help us with that. And that's the message I want to bring across. That you think about yourself, about what you can do with your ambition and the way you tackle it. Step outside of this framework. Step outside of where you are currently. Step back, look at it. Make your mind blank. Get a feeling what comes back from the things all around you. You might get a different opinion or a different idea about something. You are thinking in a specific way all this time along. And when you do that, when you're so specifically thinking, when you're so focused on a subject in that way, you don't see a solution, because the solution might be outside of what you can see, but you don't see it because you don't believe in it. And that's the message I want to bring across, that you open your mind, listen to your instincts, to your feeling about what you can do, and then tackle it in a different way. And hopefully you do it with the help of nature. And that is my ambition. Getting back to nature. be close. And currently you have the ability or possibility. If you like it or not, we are all stuck at home. We cannot do anything. I can go out in my garden. I'm fortunate I have a garden. I can do that. But that's about it. My family is at home. We are all at home. We have homeschooling via internet. Of course, we have the technology. That's the only way my kids can go to school or to university. And that's currently the way it is. But we are all stuck at home. That gives us time to think. Take this opportunity. Don't look at it as a disaster. I cannot go out. I cannot go in my pub. I cannot see my friends. I cannot go to the cinema. I cannot go shopping. That is only clouding your judgment. That's only suppressing your ability. Now that you're forced to stay where you are, and you can't move anywhere, the only way you think, oh, I need to go back in the wheel. I need to go back. Yes, I have no money. I have a problem. I lost my job and all these kind of things. I understand that because we are all part of this wheel. It works only if it works in a certain way. But it's the only thing I want to tell you is it gives you also an opportunity. You are forced at the moment. Yes, I understand that. But it gives you opportunity to rethink things. Rethink in a way how you will interact with your environment and how you act on your own with your friends, family, and all around you. Go into nature. Listen to the wind. Listen to the leaf moving on a tree. It will give you a better connection to yourself and to your environment. And I hope that gives us all a chance of moving forward. And the Earth has actually taken big advantage of us stepping back currently. The Earth is recovering. The weather has changed. The air pollution is almost gone. We have weather conditions here in Bucharest which is as good as in the mountains. And it was never like that before. It's great news for the Earth. Earth is fighting back. That's all I can say. Earth is fighting back. And we should listen. We should start to think about what can we contribute? How can we make changes? And that is your chance actually to take up this responsibility to make a change for yourself and for your environment. So I want to call that a good night to all of you, and I thank you very much for participating. And I might in the future pick up on one or the other subject. Definitely I'm working now close with the teams on my subject in nature, where we plant things, and I will give you an update once we have when we have the first results back of our testing and of our implementation of technologies, and we will come back and we'll show you something what happened, right? Let's be surprised about it. Thank you very much, and good night or good day or good morning everybody anywhere in the world. Have a good one.